Hello, everyone. Welcome to Calling Glass. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the ball. My name is Alvaro, as always. And today in the podcast, we're going to talk about and we analyze how would the league look like if we only took into consideration the matchup between the top 15 teams from the league, from the NBA. Let's see it. Hello. Welcome back. Sorry for this hiatus, for this space without uploading podcast. It's been issue of planning. I will solve it and it will happen again. I will try to do it weekly as always, the podcast. But I come with news. Because I'm going to start by doing different sections in the podcast. It's going to be there's going to be a main topic, which is the one that I mentioned in the beginning. It's going to be this analysis of what the league will look like if I only consider the top 15 teams and what in the games in between them. But I'm going to add that recurring top section, which is going to be a segment, which is going to be start just a bit of news. How does the league look like? And some news from the games that I have seen and commentary on some teams. Then the main topic, and then I will keep going and you will see what I have in reserve. So starting with the weekly update, let's call it like that. To start, I'm going to run through the conferences, how are the positions, and what are the positions in the league. So in the Eastern Conference, we have in the first position is still Cleveland Cavaliers with a record of 56-10, 16 games in a win streak at the moment, which is their record of the franchise. They have never done 16 wins in a record. They did this season already 15th in the start, and this is their second strike, let's say, of victories. The Cavaliers are the 7th team in the NBA history to win 56 of their first 66 games, and 4 out of those previous 6 teams won the NBA title. So this is something to take into consideration. Cleveland is not a surprise anymore. Cleveland is a strong candidate for everything. In the second in the East, we have the Boston Celtics with 49-19. Then we have the New York Knicks, 3rd position, Milwaukee 4th, Indiana 5th, Detroit 6, 7 is Atlanta, 8 Orlando Magic, 9 Miami Heat, 10 Chicago Bulls, and I'm not going to read the rest because it doesn't matter that much. And now in the West, we have OKC in the first position with 55-12. Then we have Houston Rockets in the second position with 43-25. Denver 3rd as well with 43. 4th, Memphis Grizzlies also with 43 wins. Lakers 5th with 40 wins and a losing streak of 4 games in a row. 6 Warriors, 7 Warriors with a win streak of 7 games in a row. 7th Minnesota, 8 Clippers, 9 Sacramento Kings, 10 Dallas, 11th Phoenix, which they could fight to get into the play-in. And now I want to mention a bit of highlights of the week, these past weeks, because actually it's been a while since I post, but Jokic did a historical performance versus the Suns. He scored 31 points. He gathered 21 rebounds and he gave 22 assists. This is the first ever 30-point, 20-round, 20-assist game in NBA history. Historical performance for Jokic, which to me he should be the MVP, although Shea has done great as well. And now, bad news, injuries. We saw a week and a half ago, Kyrie Irving torn his ACL. Horrible news for Dallas. He's out for the season. Another injury, LeBron James, he had some groin discomfort and he will be out between around 2 weeks. Not the best timing either. Then we have Jalen Brunson. He also has an ankle sprain, expected to miss 2 weeks. Victor Wembanyama, this happened a few weeks ago, but it's a big one because he's not going to be able to play for the rest of the season. He has some sort of blood clot in his shoulder, which is not good. Hopefully this is just like some months and he will be fine, because I don't like this kind of injury. It's those kind of injuries that maybe some players have been retired by these issues. So I really want to see Wembanyama's career for a long time. So I hope this is just a bit of, let's say, short and bad news, but nothing big, hopefully. And then Luka Doncic, he sprained his ankle against playing against the Denver Nuggets. And he might also miss maybe some games. Doncic, since he arrived to the Lakers, he's averaging 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists in 13 games. So he was getting back into it, but it seems that he's not completely healed, let's say. Now, I wanted to comment on some teams that I have watched lately. One of them is the one that Luka plays in, is Lakers. I have noticed that probably have seen these videos going around in social media with Luka, rookie Luka, and Luka now. You can see that he's much slower now. I was seeing before a video of him. He did 25 dunks in his rookie season. I think he has done 2 dunks in the last 3 years or this season, maybe. So definitely looking slower, much slower, heavier as well. That doesn't mean that he's not the worst player. He's a much better player than he was a rookie. So he's much better now. He's also typical players are a bit skinnier, jump higher in their teens or in their early 20s. They start to get a bit of muscle mass. Luka has gained muscle and a bit of fat mass, but it's fine. He's still a better player as a rookie. His IQ is still much better. His reads in the game are amazing. He's shooting better. He's amazing. But it's true, his speed is not the same. And I would love to see this kind of like speed with his strength, with his IQ that he has right now, and his shooting. That would be really good. But yeah, to me, Luka still fascinates me because even though not being that quick, what fascinates me from him is his ability to maintain the dribble with pressure. It's incredible. And also maintain dribble with pressure and get passed by defenders with his dribble and his footwork is really impressive. I still don't understand it. Sometimes I watch him on slow-mo to understand what really he's doing. But yeah, also I have noticed that to get passed by the defender, he accelerates, but then when he's gonna take the steps to shoot, he slows down in the first step. He bumps, he takes a second step. It's almost like he's stopping. And to create some space to bump, and it works perfectly for him. One second point, LeBron James about the Lakers, second point about the Lakers. I saw that LeBron James, he has been struggling all his life, all the last years, the later years with his hair or his lack of hair. I saw him lately very, very shaved, a bit of like very short, the hair very short. It looks like he's, understanding and he's going a bit more in the ball mode. Actually, he looks fine, so he should have done it earlier. But yeah, no, he looks good, and it's not even. It's good that because it's not even noticeable that he's going almost full bald mode at the moment. And then third point about the Lakers, and not only about the Lakers, but I have seen something that I didn't like, is that I've seen some faults being called on players like Luka or like Branson or like Shea, in which they drive to the basket, they stop, they fake, the defender jumps, but then Luka jumps into the defender and shoots at the same time. To me, this shouldn't be a fault. Maybe it should be actually an offensive fault because it's the offensive player, the attacker, who is jumping into the defender. The defender usually is playing defense, and then he jumps vertically, but he doesn't land in the shooter space, and it's the shooter, the one who's like going against the defender. So yeah, I don't like those calls. I have seen them with Luka, I've seen them with Shea, I've seen them with Branson. I don't like them at all. And yeah, hopefully they stop whistling that, the referees. And also talking about faults, Jackson Hayes, which is also semi-injured at the moment, he does a lot of faults playing in defense. Maybe it's because he's skinny or not too strong, but when he contests at the rim, he usually gets whistled with a foul. It's true that he goes a lot of times not vertically, he's jumping to the side. I think that's why. And out of defenders move him when they bump into him. Probably he was more sturdy. I think he should actually maybe sometimes not even jump because he's really tall. He should just stand there with the arms up and make the defender shoot over or around him instead of him jumping into the defender, the attacker. So yeah, those are my takes on the Los Angeles Lakers. Another team I wanted to comment on is the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic. Kentavious Caldwell Pope might have the best pull-up jumper in the whole NBA. It's ridiculous. It's so mechanized. It's like automatic. It's beautiful to watch, especially with he takes one dribble and he does the movement perfectly, always the same. And when I saw him, I actually noticed, or I have thought about something, is there in my opinion, there are two types of shooters, basketball shooters. There is the mechanical shooters, just like KCP, for example, or Ray Allen, in my opinion, Kawhi Leonard, maybe Rashard Lewis. I can add here also JJ Redick, or the shooter, I forgot his name, from Creighton. He played in Philadelphia and he played in Atlanta. I don't know. I forgot his name. Kyle Korver, also. To me, those are like mechanical shooters. Let's call it like that. And then I see the non-mechanical shooters, which are shooters. I will explain what I see the difference. To me, non-mechanical shooters might be like Reggie Miller, Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson. Actually, most shooters are non-mechanical. What I mean by mechanical, it's players that seem to jump more when they shoot, and they seem to fully exhaust the power of their shot, of the legs in the shot. Meaning that they cannot shoot from further away. It's like they do always semi-mechanic with a kind of like a big leap, and it's like they fully reach they use all the power that they have in that shot. That doesn't mean that they shoot. Yeah, that's what I feel like. JJ Redick was a high jumper also. And I think these kind of shooters are great when they shoot, when they are alone in 3-point line. It's cash because they have mechanized the shot, but maybe they are not that good in shooting in unorthodox situations, like Curry does, for example, or shooting farther away from 3-point line. They might not have the strength because they are used to doing always the same jump, the same mechanic, always the same movement with hands. Now, if you move a bit farther away, they don't have the strength in the legs to do the same movement and reach the basketball. So I think these mechanical shooters used to be more predominant in the 2000s. Now there is less. And I think they are very good, but for always the same kind of shot, let's say, because they have automatized that shot. On the other hand, the non-mechanical shooters that I see, I think these players are better for shooting out of the bounds, for example, or shooting in positions that are not always the same, or running different to the left or to the right. But yeah, that was just a thought about shooting and shooting mechanics. Also, about Orlando, I remember watching the game against Toronto. They lost. In the last quarter, they were playing with an insane height, let's say, in the team, the 5 men. It was Corey Joseph only in the one, because Jake Sachs, unfortunately, is injured. So he was Corey Joseph playing the point guard, more or less. And the rest of the guys, they were all 6'8" and above, or 6'9". It was impressive. It was Tristan da Silva, Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, and Jonathan Isaac. All huge players, all with a lot of reach, all very mobile. None of them is a pure 5. None of them is a 5, honestly. You could even, and they are all forwards, lanky, tall, mobile, great defenders, great for versatile, great for switching. So yeah, that was something that I saw from Orlando. I still like Orlando a lot, even though they are not doing that well. And then last thing about Orlando, Paulo Banchero. This guy scores points not even wanted to. Like, his athletic ability, it's so impressive that he scores points without even trying that hard. Like, the question, he always can get the shot off. The question if it's either he makes it or he doesn't make it. But no one can make him not shoot. It's impossible. He can shoot anytime that he wants, and he can shoot actually a fairly non-contested shot because of his athletic ability. The question is for him if he makes it or not. That's it. And last team that I wanted to comment on is the Denver Nuggets. Denver First thing that I saw is that Jamal Murray is getting better. It's coming back to a better physical level. He's looking a bit sharper. He's looking a bit fresher. Back a bit like the Jamal Murray that we knew from playoffs, from the bubble. Not the Jamal Murray from last season or from the Olympics, which he played horrible. But it looks like it's taking some time. I feel like players, it's time, the level of the league, of the NBA, athletically is so high that if you get injured, you need probably months, not even weeks. You need like 3 to 6 months. It depends on what injury you have to come back to the level you were before getting injured. That's not that you cannot play, but to come back to your pure highest level, it might take you more months than you might think. Also, I've seen this with Halliburton. Halliburton is also, it looks like he's getting back to his last season, like more than 1 year ago level. So that's point one from the Nuggets. Point two, I saw this looking at Russell Westbrook. I feel like there is something with very athletic players when they start to get older. They still do things as if they had the athleticism that they used to have in the past. So when they were very athletic, they created some sort of, let's say, automatic moves that it worked because they were athletic. They were able to jump over the defender to give pass, so they were able to push through the defense, or they were able to just by speed run through the basket. And they have they acquire certain moves that way that they used to do because they were athletic, and it worked. Now, when the athleticism starts to go down, they keep doing those moves because they already, it's something that they were doing always. It's automatized, like I mentioned before with the shot. But it doesn't work. So it's almost, I understand that it might be very frustrating for them, and it's almost like they need to relearn how to play basketball, so it's very hard. Usually it doesn't happen. And I saw this with Westbrook. Westbrook, I think he's fairly athletic still. And I think he's a good player, but he sometimes makes mistakes because that before they were not mistakes. Before they were moves that worked because he was athletic. Now they are moves that don't work because he's not athletic enough to do it. So yeah, just a thought on that. And now I move to the main segment of the podcast, the analysis that I did, which is I did analysis. I took the teams. Actually, I looked by win percentage. I looked at the teams with more than 50%, 50 or more win percentage. And then I recreated the league, taking into consideration only these teams and taking into consideration only the games that these teams have played in between them. It's also true that the teams that have 50% wins are also the top 15 teams. So it's half of the league. So pretty much I just took the best half of the league. I saw what were the matchups in between them, and I recreated the league with wins and losses. And I'm going to tell you now, how does it look like? Who is the first in the East, who is the first in the West, etc. So I'm going to go first with the Eastern Conference. Again, teams, of course, since I only took half of the teams, they haven't played in between those. They haven't played 60 games or 70, what they are around right now. They are in the 30s usually. So these teams have played 30 games in between top 15 teams. I hope this is clear. I hope it's clear what I did here. The goal was to see, especially now that the league, we're in the last part of the regular season. I think this analysis is good to see actually what might happen in the playoffs and which are the teams that are performing good against top teams and which are the teams that are performing bad against top teams. Because when the playoff starts, it's always the best teams. So, and I have seen some interesting things. There are teams that are actually performing pretty good or the same against top teams that bad teams. There are teams that are performing very bad against good teams. That might surprise you or not. So let's go into it. From the Eastern Conference. In the first position in the East, it is still the Cleveland Cavaliers with a record of 25 wins and 6 losses against the top 15 teams of the NBA. This means that they have a win percentage of 81% against the best teams on the league, which is only a 4% down against the real record of wins, which is 85%. So they come from 85% to 81%. This is very good. You will see when I tell you the teams that this is, I think this is the second or third best drop, let's say, because most of the team drops in win percentage. So this is pretty amazing. The fact that out of 31 games, they have only lost 6 against these teams is pretty impressive. So in reality, they have played 66 games and they have a record of 56-10. If they had played this number of games only against top teams, they will still be 53-13. Only 3 losses more, which is incredible. They are ranked first against top teams, and they're also ranked first in the East in reality. So their ranking, their standings is the same. I did a comparison of real standings against non-fictional top team standings. So that's our first seed of the East. In the second seed of the East, as well, no surprise, is the Boston Celtics. They maintain the same seed. They are seed second in the East against top teams, and also seed second in the East in reality. Boston, but the record is not as good. They are 22-13 against 50% win teams, which is a 63% of wins, which is a drop of 9%, 9 percentage points, versus the 72% of wins that they have in the reality, in the regular season. This means that they are coming down from 48-19. If I extrapolate, they will come down to a 42-25, which is 6 less wins. What I'm doing here is I'm taking the percentage of wins and I'm converting the real balance of 48-19 to what it would look like if I use their records against the top teams, which will drop to 42-25, 6 losses more, which is still pretty good. And a drop of 9% is even normal. It's above average, I can say. And like I said, they are still ranked second in the East, same as in reality. Third seed in the East. This one might come with a bit of a surprise. It is the Indiana Pacers with a record of 16-12 against the best teams of the league. This means that they are a 57% win percentage, which is the same win percentage that they have in reality against the whole league. So they are pretty much winning the same or losing the same against top teams that they are losing or winning against bottom teams of the league, which I guess for me it's a good thing. Let's put it that way. And I can tell you right now that this is the best out of all the teams that I have analyzed. This is the best drop or non-drop at all of wins. So they are Indiana Pacers, the team that maintains the level the best against top teams. The record in reality is 37-28, and their fictional record against top teams will be the same, 37-28. Now, here's where it's interesting. In reality, they are the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. Now, if I only take into consideration the record against the top teams, they will be the 3rd seed in the East. Pretty good for the Indiana Pacers. Fourth seed in the East. They drop from 3rd in reality to 4th is the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks have a record against the top teams of 13 wins and 17 losses. This is a 43% of wins, which is a drop of 21 percentage points versus their 65% wins that they have in reality. This is massive drop. You will see if it's the worst. It's one of the worst of the league, definitely. Their actual record is 42 wins and 23 losses. If I convert this with the new percentage of wins, it will be 28 wins and 37 losses, which is 14 less wins for the New York Knicks. This is a huge drop, like I said, and they go from being ranked third in the East to being ranked fourth. Indiana surpasses them. I don't think, to me, so this what this means basically is the Knicks are doing the job against bad teams, but against top teams, they're struggling to get wins. This is what it means. There is a huge difference for the Knicks when they compete against top teams and when they compete against bottom teams. And to me, this is not that much of a surprise because their game is based a lot in intensity, let's say. But against top teams, you need more than intensity. You need a bit of top talent. You need something special. And I don't think the Knicks have that edge against those teams. I don't think Jalen Brunson is a top tier talent such as other players are. And I think you can see that here. But yeah. Still not bad that they are fourth in the East. Even though they drop a lot, doesn't mean there are teams obviously worse than them, like the 5th and the 6th seed in the East that I will talk about right now. In the 5th position, dropping from the 4th position in reality, is the Milwaukee Bucks with a record of 12 and 16, which is also a 43%, same as the Knicks. But they dropped from 57% wins to 43%, which is a 14 percentage points of drop. Which is also big, but it's not that much. For comparison, I told you, Cleveland only -4%, Boston -9%, Indiana 0% drop, Knicks 21% drop, Milwaukee 14% drop. This means that they would have 9 less wins than in reality. So they will go from 37-28 to 28-37. They reverse it, actually. Funny thing. I just noticed that. And like I said, they will move from the 4th position in the East to the 5th. And lastly, closing the East, because there is only 6 teams in the East with a 50% or more record, is the Detroit Pistons, which they have a record against top team of 11 and 19, which is 37% of wins. Not good. And they dropped from 55%, which is a 19% drop. Also, huge drop, not as big as the Knicks, but well. Detroit, again, is doing the homework against the bad teams. Is not doing that well against the top teams. Makes sense also. They're very young. They come from not probably their worst season in history. So I think this season should be considered still as a success. Getting into the playoffs without playing is amazing for them if they can maintain the 6th position. So yeah, and they are dropping, but it's normal that they drop against top teams. Their win record is going from 37 to 25 wins, so 12 less wins. And they stay in the same position, 6 in the East, both in the fictional league that I'm creating here and in reality. Now I also have here not only the wins and the losses against top teams, but their offense and the defense against top teams. So I have how much points they have scored against top teams and what is the difference versus reality. So how is their offense of these teams performing against top teams and how is their defense performing? So let's start with the best offense from the East against top teams. It's from Cleveland Cavaliers, which is 122 points of average scored, which it doesn't drop from reality. So their offense is the best in the league, and actually is the best in the East, let's put it this way, and it's the best, it maintains the level against top teams. So their performance is very good. Who has the worst offense from these teams in the East? Well, the Detroit Pistons with 112, which is a drop of 3 points less versus reality. So they are struggling to score against top defenses. Also, Milwaukee has the second worst defense, which is 113 offense. 113 points, which is a drop of 1.5. So not that much difference. In the other hand, who has the best defense? That is the Boston Celtics. They allow their opponents to score 111 points per game, but they drop a bit, or they allow more points than in reality. So in reality, they are allowing only 108, and against top teams, they are getting scored 2.5 more points per game. So they go from 108 defense to 111. Now, who has the worst defense out of these teams is the Indiana Pacers, actually, which they allow 118 points, which is almost 3 points more than in reality. But about Indiana, this is funny because they actually score better against top teams than against bad teams. So the record of scoring, the scoring average in total is 116. But if you only consider it against top teams, they score 117, so 1 point better, which is pretty good. Now, going back to the defense, Cleveland is also doing very well. Overall, so if I look at point differential, I'm going to tell you which are the teams that their point differential, so offense minus defense, gets, let's say, the biggest difference in reality versus the top teams. So the worst one is coming from Detroit. They are 5 points worse against top teams. The second worst is the Milwaukee Bucks, also 5 points. And the best one is Indiana, which makes sense because we saw before that they maintain the level against top teams, which is only 1.5 points worse of point differential, which makes sense. Like I said, they maintain the level. So my overall, talking about what is my conclusion, right, of this analysis from the East, is that I'm very positive about Cleveland. They are the best team in the East, and they maintain the level. It's not only that they do the homework against the worst teams, they are doing the homework against everyone. Their offense maintains the level. Their defense, I didn't say it, but drops only 1.5 points, and they keep winning. So this is very good news for Cleveland. I think they should be heavily considered, not only as a surprise or as a second candidate in the East, they might be considered first candidate on the East. Who's also doing very positively? I just mentioned them, Indiana Pacers. Very good news that they are maintaining the level and they are actually having a better offense against top teams. To me, this is as well not a surprise because last year we saw that they reached the Eastern Conference Finals. They are great competitors. They can push their level up against top teams. Their offense is very hard to stop, even for good defenses. Maybe it's because they play this kind of fast pace in which the defense cannot really prepare themselves. They cannot organize them. It's not that much one-on-one. It's not much static positions. It's more a scramble and run, which it's hard to prep against that, right? So bad defenses and good defenses cannot really do anything against them because they play really quickly and without of movement. So like I said, good, positive, this analysis for Cleveland and for Indiana. Bad, I just mentioned before, for the Knicks. For Milwaukee, it's not that good either, but for the Knicks, it's worse because the Knicks are in reality third and they are dropping and they are losing. They are not winning against top teams. The Knicks actually they don't have. It's not that their offense is much worse or the defense is much worse. It's both. Their offense is the same. Sorry, their offense it's 117. It's the same level. Their defense, in the other hand, is 3 points worse against top teams. So it's not intensity doesn't do the cut in defense against top teams. So yeah, this is my conclusion about the East Conference. Now we move on to the West. In the West, Western Conference, the first team that's doing better against the top opponents, the teams that are 50% wins or more, is still OKC Thunder, Oklahoma City Thunder. They are the first seed in the West in reality, and they're the first seed in the West in my analysis, with a record of 25 wins and 11 losses against top teams. This is a 69% of wins, which is a drop of 12 percentage points. They go from 82% wins to 69% wins. It's not like Cleveland Cavaliers that we saw before, that they maintain the level. OKC has lost more games against top teams. So in reality, they are 54-12. If we took the percentage of wins we use the new percentage of wins, they will be at 46-20, which is eight less wins. Still, they're the best team in the West, so that's important. And they are, out of 3 games, they are winning 2 against top teams, so that's pretty good. In the second seed, this is a surprise. I think a lot of people might like this. I think some people might expect it, maybe. The second best team against the top teams from the West. By the way, the analysis is not how well they match up against top teams from the West. The matchup is against all the teams that I'm considering, right? East and West. So I'm just using the matchups in between those teams. So the second seed in the West, if we only consider their matchups against the 50% or more win teams, is the Los Angeles Lakers of Luka Doncic and LeBron James. Yes. With a record of 20 wins and 15 losses, which puts them at 57% of wins, which is a drop of 4% from the 61.5% wins in reality that they have, which is a very small drop. As we saw, I think this is the best one after Indiana Pacers, which they drop 0. Cleveland also drops 4%, and Lakers also 4%. This means that in reality they are 40-25. In this league, they will be 37-28, only 3 less wins, which is pretty good. And like I was saying, if they are in reality, they are seed 5th in the West, and now they will be seeded 2nd in the West. So they move up 3 positions in the ranks. It is also true that the West is very tight. So from the 2nd to the 7th, I think there is like almost no games in between, 1 or 2 games of difference. So, it's not like, but still, they are 2nd in this analysis, and they are performing very well against top teams. 3rd position, maybe surprise, maybe not. Young team, doing very well with a very strong defense. The Houston Rockets. They have a record of 21-18, which is a 54%, which is a drop of 9% versus reality. Not bad at all. In reality, they have 42 wins and 25. In this fake analysis, they will have 36-31 wins. 36 wins, which is 6 less wins than in reality. Pretty good. And they will stay, they are 3rd right now in the West. They will stay 3rd. Who will be 4th? Also a bit of maybe a surprise. Maybe a lot of people will be happy with that. This is also a veteran team that thinks usually, I think veteran teams perform better against top teams, right? Because they know what they need to do. They know what it takes. It's the Golden State Warriors with a record of 19-20. So one game they win, another they lose, which is a 49%. It's a drop of 9%. They are winning right now 58% of games. They will drop to 49. Not that big of a drop. They are currently 38-28. They will be 32-34. Only 6 less wins. So it's very parallel to Houston Rockets. Like I said, they are 4th, ranked 4th in this analysis. In reality, they are 6th in the West, so they move up 2 positions. Lakers move up 3 and Warriors move up 2. So this means that there are teams that are going down, because you will see right now. For example, the next team that I actually disliked a lot that is happening, because I like them a lot, and I think their key player is the MVP. So I'm talking about Denver Nuggets. Denver Nuggets is currently ranked second in the West, at least when I'm doing this, and they are dropping to the 5th position against top teams, which is 3 positions less. Against top teams, they are performing at a 49% win, so same as Warriors with a record of 17 and 18. And it's a drop of 16% versus reality, in which they are winning 64% of the games. So in reality, they have won 43 games. In my analysis, they will have won 33, which is 10 less wins. What I take about the Nuggets is that Jokic, it's an amazing player, and he does always great, but against bad defenses, he absolutely dominates, and he can win by himself. What I also think is that Denver as a team is not that strong, apart from Jokic. I think they are very limited. I think they have no bench. I think they play with 8 players. And I think when things get tough and Jokic is being faced with really good defenders and teams that are prepared for him, if the other players don't come up and help him, it's very difficult for them to win. That's my view of this. Yes, Jokic against bad teams can do amazing, like I said before, 30, 20, 20. But against the Boston Celtics, Cleveland Cavaliers, he can't do that. He can do maybe 30, 10, 10. And that seems not to be enough. So yeah, it almost seems normal that Nuggets are, I think they are playing Jokic is playing at a maximum level. I think they are putting the engine at 100%. And that's enough to win and to beat bad teams, but sometimes that's not enough to beat the good teams. That's how I see it. And on the other hand, I think there are teams that are not always playing 100% and they still get wins. And when they push it to 100, they actually beat the good teams. This is the case of Cleveland, Boston, OKC, Lakers, as we saw. So yeah, it's a bit worrying for Denver, this. And yeah, this maybe means something now that the playoffs are getting closer. Actually, for me, when I will make the rankings or my predictions for the playoffs, I will take this analysis very heavily into consideration, because playoffs are actually top teams against top teams. And yeah, and I see that Denver is not doing that well, even though I will love them to. Next team, 6th seed on the West in this analysis is the Minnesota Timberwolves, which in reality they are 7th, so they move up 1 position. They have a record of 18 and 21, which is 46% of wins against top teams. In reality, they have 57%, so it's a drop of 11%. Again, I feel like 10% drop is normal. When you get more than 15, it's pretty bad. Less than 10 is pretty good. Minnesota is 10, 11, so that's pretty good. They will drop from 39 wins to 31, 8 less wins, but they move out 1 seed in the West, so that's good. I will talk about Minnesota in the offense and defense analysis, because they might get shut out. Lately they are playing better. And Minnesota also, last year, they got to the conference finals. They can be tough. Anthony Edwards, I feel like he gets very motivated against top talent. So, and we see it here. They're not doing bad against top teams. In the 7th position, we have the Los Angeles Clippers with a record of 15 and 21. They drop 1 position. They go from 8 in reality. Sorry, they move up 1 position. They go from 8 to 7 in reality. They will have a 42% wins against the best opponents, which is a drop of 14%. Kind of big. And then I move on to the team competing against the Knicks for the worst performance against best opponents, which is the Memphis Grizzlies. They have a record of 14 and 20, which is a 41%. Knicks were at 43, but that's not. So, I mean, it's not that these teams are doing horrible. It just means that they are dropping a lot when they play against top talent. Memphis drop is of 22%, same as the Knicks. So they went from winning 63% to 41%. This means that they, in reality, they have 42 wins and 25 losses. In this fiction analysis, they have 28 wins and 39 losses. And not only that, but looking at the ranking, this is horrible. They move from being 4th in the West, in reality, to being 8th. So there are 7 teams better than them in the West against top talent. This is a drop of 4 positions. Not a good look for Memphis. Young team as well. Long rotation might work well against bottom teams, but they are not performing that well against good teams. And then in the last position in the West, in the 9th seed, both in reality and both in this analysis, is the Sacramento Kings. They have a record of 12 and 22 against top talent, which is 35%, which is a drop off from 50% because they are currently 33 and 33. They dropped to 35%. So they will be 23 and 43. But yeah, Sacramento, again, 15% is almost normal. It's not too bad of a drop. Now I move on to the analysis of offense and defense. Instead of going, I'm gonna look at the specific teams because I think it might be better. If I don't mention a team, it's because they of course drop. Everyone drops a bit, but maybe they don't drop significantly. So first, let's talk about OKC. They have the best offense from the West, in reality, of 120 points. And they have the best defense, the best offense as well in this analysis. They barely drop any. They drop half a point. So they go, yeah. So their offense keeps the level against top teams. Now their defense, on the other hand, is almost 4 points worse against top teams. So they go from allowing 107 points to allowing 111 points. That's mainly the reason that they have dropped a bit against top teams we saw before. It's because of their defense cannot maintain the level against top teams. Their offense, yes, but the defense not. Another team to mention, one of the biggest losers that I mentioned, is the Denver Nuggets. Their offense goes in reality from 121 points per game to 117 points. That's actually, it's almost 5 points worse. They cannot score at the same level. It makes sense. It makes sense because Jokic is a massive offensive player, but their difference and their problem against top teams is their offense, not their defense. The defense is more or less the same, but it's from the offense. They cannot maintain the level. Jokic probably cannot score at the same level. They need more help against top teams, and it's seen. You can see it here, 5 points worse in offense against top teams. Also, Memphis, that I mentioned before, similar. They are 4 points worse in offense against top teams. Actually, in reality, they are the best offensive team of the league with an average of 123 points, but against top teams, they are scoring 118. That's where their issue comes from as well. Defense a bit, but mainly offense. Then, who's looking very good? Well, also looking very bad before Clippers as well. They have a huge drop also. In offense, they are 4 points worse against top players, top teams as well. So their offense struggles as well against top teams. Clippers. Now, who's looking very good? Like I mentioned, it makes sense because we saw before in the rankings. Lakers. Their offense is only 1.4 points worse against top teams. Their defense is actually half a point better against top teams. So it's more or less the same. So yeah. I mean, it's not surprising that they maintain the level a lot. They maintain the defensive level. Lakers can defend at a high level against good teams. And then, I think that's it. Well, also mentioning, I also want to mention Minnesota. Minnesota has the best defense against the top teams. Well, the best defense with OKC, with Clippers, and almost Lakers. They are there. Those are the best defenses. But Minnesota only drops offensively. They are only 1 point worse against top defenses, and they are 2 points worse in defense against top teams, which is not that big of a drop. Like I mentioned before, I think this is a good sign for Minnesota. I think they can score. I think Anthony Edwards, really, it's more up to him to score or not. So I think that's why the offense doesn't take that much of a step back. And I think their defense is pretty solid. Like we see here, it's the best defense against top teams with OKC, yeah? With OKC and with Clippers. But Clippers, for example, are a team that cannot maintain their offense. But on the other hand, Minnesota, yes, they can. That's what the difference, that's where it comes from, all this difference. Finally, I will just recap. So yeah, what are my conclusions from the West? So I will give scores. So very good. Who has done very good? Who's performing very good against top teams? Is the Los Angeles Lakers, as we saw. Who's performing good? Not very good, but good against top teams. Is OKC Thunder, which are the first. They are the best still, but with a bit of a drop, but they're the best. Houston Rockets, good. And Golden State Warriors, good. Who are doing bad? That will be the Memphis Grizzlies and the Denver Nuggets. Those teams should be worried for the playoffs, and they should try and think what they're going to do in the playoffs. So that's all. Let's recap a bit. I did a bit of a total standings. What do they look like? If we look at total East and West combined. So the best team against 50% winning teams is the Cleveland Cavaliers with a record of 25-6. Second team is OKC Thunder, also 21 wins but 11 losses. Third is Boston with 22-13. Fourth, Indiana, careful here. Careful with Indiana with 16-12. Fifth, Lakers, also careful here, 20-15. Sixth is Houston. Seventh is Warriors. Their Warriors are 49%. Eighth is Denver Nuggets. Ninth, Minnesota Timberwolves. 10th, New York Knicks. 11th, Milwaukee Bucks. 12th, Los Angeles Clippers. 13th, Memphis. Huge drop. 14th, Detroit. 15th, Sacramento. And that's all for the, let's say, segment, the big segment of the podcast, the big analysis. But the podcast is not over because I have 2 more segments to add to the podcast. Let's move on to the next one, which is I know what you did the spring of 1985. So what is this segment about? This I'm going to do every week. I'm going to talk about something that happened the same week in the history of the NBA. So from the 8th to the 16th of March, what happened around the NBA in some year that is remarkable and that I will talk about, I will say quickly as a refresher. And this time we are traveling to the 80s, we're turning to the 85, because on March 12th of 1985, a person known, Indiana-bound person, known by Bird, Larry Bird, Boston Celtic player, historical legend of the Celtics. On March 12th against the Atlanta Hawks, he scored 60 points on a win, shooting 22 for 36 from the field, which is a 61%. Why is this remarkable? Well, first of all, this was a record for the Celtics scored in a game until 2022 that Jason Tatum surpassed it. So until then, it was from the 85 to 22, almost 40 years. This was the record of the Celtics scoring. What also happened in this game? Well, previously, some days before, Kevin McHale had set the record, which was 56 points, But Bear jokingly told him that he shouldn't have stopped there. He should have gone for 60 because he was going to soon surpass it. And he did it a few days later against the Atlanta Hawks, like I said. And the last thing to mention is that there is video of this. The shots that he was scoring in this game were ridiculous, even so ridiculous that the Atlanta Hawks player in the bench were laughing. They were throwing themselves in the floor. There is video of this. And really, you should watch it if you haven't seen what Larry Bird was like. So that's a segment. That's a bit segment. I will do this every week if you like it. I think it's a fun thing to do, to go back, to travel back in time and see what's going on in the league in different years. So last thing, we move on to the calling game, which is a game that I'm going to try to do every week. Let's see it. So I was trying to do with the help of ChatGPT, but ChatGPT doesn't even know the stats well. I don't know where he's going. I asked him to test me, and then he asked me where are the top 5 best average scoring seasons in history. And I guessed Harden, and he's not. And I was like, that's weird because I know he scored 36%. And then I correctly checked that it was. So I know more than ChatGPT. So I cannot do it like that. I will see how I do it in the following weeks. But I'm subscribed to Basketball Reference, and they have a question here. So maybe that this is a game. Which the question is, which player does not have 20,000 career points? And they give me 4 options. I haven't looked this up yet. So I will see the options, respond, and then look up the answer. So it's Tracy McGrady, 1, 2, LaMarcus Aldridge, 3, Joe Johnson, 4, David Robinson. So I'm going to discard LaMarcus Aldridge because he was scoring a lot. I remember his games in the playoffs against Houston, scoring like 40. He started I don't know against who he was, but he was like doing 46. Yeah, something ridiculous, like 46, 40 something, like 3 games of 40 more points in a row in the playoffs in the first round. So LaMarcus Aldridge is off. Now David Robinson, I know that he entered the league very late when he was already like around 24. So he might not have played enough games to reach 20,000 points, although he was scoring a lot. Then Joe Johnson, he was a scorer, and he had a pretty long career. He was playing until he was older. Although definitely by name, it should be him. He's the least. He has the least accolades, so maybe it could be him, Joe Johnson. If not, maybe it could be Tracy McGrady because he got injured a bit and he didn't score that much. Well, he scored all, meaning that he didn't play that much, and he also retired a bit early. I think my gut's telling me David Robinson just because of the shorter career, and I'm gonna say David Robinson. That's it. So I'm gonna look now. Which of these players does not have 20,000 career points? McGrady, Aldridge, Joe Johnson, David Robinson. And then my answer is David Robinson. Let's see. So I'm wrong. David Robinson has 20,790 points. So barely above 20,000. He played 14 years actually until he was 37. So that's not him. Let's check now. I don't know. I guess I would guess. So it's not David Robinson. I don't think it's Aldridge. Is it maybe Joe Johnson or McGrady? I'm going to guess McGrady because of the injuries. And it is McGrady. Nice, second try. He has scored 18,000 points in 15 years. So he played actually pretty long, but I guess his averages really dropped off after Houston because of injuries. Out of curiosity, I'm going to check Joe Johnson and LaMarcus Aldridge to see if he was close or not really. So Joe Johnson played 18 seasons and he scored 20,400 points. So I knew he played out of seasons, although that's pretty tight, 20,400. But yeah, now let's see Aldridge. So Aldridge also, this was a bit of a tricky question. Aldridge, 16 years in the league, 20,500 points. So as well, pretty tight. I didn't know it was so tight, but yeah. So okay, second try, it's not that bad. So all right, that's all for today. I hope you enjoy the podcast and see you hopefully next week. I think I will do something similar, but instead of looking at the teams against teams, I'm going to look at the players against top teams. So what are the stats against the top teams? So see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.